Hello, it's early April 2017 and I thought it would be a good time to do an update on our chicken composting operation. I made a bunch of videos so far. I'm going to put links to them throughout as I talk about this. But basically what I wanted to share, we're in the early stages of what will be kind of the next phase. Now that we've had an entire winter of our chickens being on compost, and I talk about this in greater detail in other videos, so I won't get into huge specifics of it now. But the question is, you know, we're getting closer to the beginning of the growing season. How do we now take all of this material that these chickens generated and put it to use? And the thought was, rather than sending it directly out into the garden, would be to make these compost rings that are in the chicken yard first. And so I'll make a series of them. As I chew through this material, there'll be ring after ring after ring, with space in between them for the chickens to go through and scratch. I can open up the soil in between them to allow the chickens to have access to all of the incredible rich earthworms that are in there. This whole area is turning into just a teeming earthworm zone. It's pretty wonderful. And by having these compost rings, we can put a little bit of soil on the top of each of them. Once they're full, I can put another ring around this that's a little bit taller, and that'll make it so the chickens can't jump in there. And we can grow crops that we want on this, partially for us, but also partially, if there's another ring around, we can put in things like lettuce and kale, etc., that as the greens come out, the chickens can eat that, but not actually kill the plant. And it's a way for the compost to have a year of aging before it finally goes out into the main gardens, but still produce a yield for this season. So what's nice about this is if I do 1 or 2 rings a day, it's an opportunity for the chickens to go through the compost and pick out the last little bits before it goes into the ring. Grab whatever worms are there. This stuff's already in a position where it's not too bad for the garden, but it would be nice for it to age. But let's look at some other things that the chickens are getting to enjoy this spring. So I started another compost ring here just to give you the idea that we'll continue to make these rings following the compost. So these can all be raised garden beds. I'll put another ring around them to protect them. We'll talk more about that in other videos. But what's fun about this is as each time I make the ring, as I'm opening up the soil, the chickens are getting the worms. I give them a minute or two with each hay fork full to pick it over and get their feed out of it. It's the beauty of living on an incredibly busy road. We're still trying to farm. If you live in a crappy place with a crappy industrial road, you can still farm too. It doesn't have to be the perfect land. Anyway, so they get a minute or two with it, that it goes in the compost ring. You get the idea. We're going to go into deeper detail on this in another video. Let's pause for now and look at some other ways that we're feeding them earthworms in huge piles without a ton of hassle. So this was a neat trick a friend of mine told me about and then we put into practice, so I'll tell you about. It's the log lunch area. Logs that were going to be firewood but were not fun to try to split were just brought into the mushroom or into the chicken yard. I said mushroom because sometimes old mushroom logs come in here too. And this is down in the wet bottom part of the property. These big logs, which would otherwise not be able to burn, we put them all throughout in here, and then every few days we flip them over. Now this one I just flipped yesterday, so there's not that much. We'll find a real deal freshie. You flip them over. Come on, logs, show me the cool stuff. And there's earthworms underneath for the chickens to scratch apart. So it's a pretty low amount of effort for them to go through. You can see that one caught an earthworm. Depending on how long you wait between flipping them, sometimes it'll just be teeming with earthworms.
That one had a bunch.
That was a nice one. They're being rude to each other. You know it's a good sign if they're rude to each other. There's food. But you get the idea. You flip them over once. All sorts of bugs, craziness going on. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, there's just a quick update on our chicken compost system. We'll do more videos as time allows. Thanks for watching. So in other bird news, we threw some old wool on the ground for the wild birds to turn into nesting material. Let's see if it worked. Well, alright, a little sloppy around the edges, but my goodness, what a puff of comfort in there. I could only imagine being a tiny baby bird born into a pile of puff with a nice warm mom on top. I hope they're happy and healthy.